All right. I just had a really ridiculous idea, which was I thought I would teach a Feldenkrais class while I was driving over to where I'm having dinner tonight. And I'm driving. So, but a Feldenkrais class, especially one like this where I can't see you, I don't really have to look at the camera, although I've got it positioned so I can. But if you're going to do the class, you don't really want to look at me. You want to lie on the floor, or you could do what we're going to do this time in a chair. Maybe you saw the live I did a couple days ago where I did a Feldenkrais class, but I forgot to save it. So this time I'm going to hopefully do that. In any case, maybe I'll just see this on Instagram, but I wanted to have a copy to share with folks later on my mailing list. So if you see this and you want to just regularly get that kind of thing, you might want to sign up. But if you're turning this on and seeing the recording later, just like last time, I'm going to give you a minute or two to kind of get set up. So once again, you could lie on the floor somewhere comfortable to do this. You could also do it sitting in a chair. If you have the choice, if you have both possibilities, I recommend lying on the floor. And I'm going to do something related to the jaw today, the jaw and the tongue. But any Feldenkrais lesson, even if you hear someone say that this is about the tongue or the shoulder or the pelvis, there's definitely different areas of focus in different lessons, but the idea of making the movements easier is always related to integrating the part into the whole. So you'll see how that works as we go along. Anyways, I'm going to assume that you're more or less ready at this point, and so here we go. All right, so you're lying on the floor, or maybe you're sitting in a chair. If you're sitting in a chair, you can rest however you wish at the moment, but notice the position you've chosen. If you're on the floor, you could stand your feet, or you could lengthen the legs. But in either case, you're just checking in at this point with the contact of your body against the surfaces that support you. And the idea is you're not doing this in a way where you're trying to figure out if everything's the way it should be. We're trying to get rid of the idea of what should be here. So some parts of your body, maybe the feet or behind the pelvis, you might feel more connected to the surface on one side more than the other, on the left more than the right, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, but do notice those things. If you're in a chair, this is mainly your feet on the floor, the back of your pelvis, and you might notice the position of your head in relation to your two sit bones if you're sitting on a chair. If you're on the floor, just notice the length of your spine, how it connects to the ground, and the point on the back of your head where it rests. And now in either case, just turn your head from side to side. On the floor, you could be rolling your head on the floor. If you're in the chair, you're just turning to look as if you were going to see over one shoulder or the other. But you just go as far as is easy right now. And notice here if there's a difference, left and right. So once you have some sense of that, just leave that alone. Rest again. Notice your breathing. Okay. And now what we're going to do, for a while we're just going to be doing, actually scratch that. Let's do one movement first. with the pelvis. So bring your attention to the pelvis. Again, you could be doing this in a chair. If you're on the floor, go ahead and stand your feet right now, about shoulder width apart. And the movement you're going to do is just to roll the pelvis slowly a little bit away from your feet. So if you're sitting, that means rolling your pelvis towards the back of the chair. If you're on the floor, you're bringing more pressure towards the top of the sacrum. But you're not holding it there. You just do a small movement, and then you let the pelvis return to its original position. And do that a few times. Just notice how you're coordinating this with your breath. You could be doing it on the inhale, or you could be doing it on the exhale. What did you choose? Okay, take a break. And then come back to the movement, but switch the coordination with your breath. So if you did it with the inhale, do it with the exhale. If you did it with the exhale, do it with the inhale. And just feel, as you do this movement, what do you feel up the length of your spine? Is this movement sort of speaking through your spine to your head? Of course, that's different on the floor versus being in a chair, but just feel through the length of your spine. Rest again, and now move the pelvis in the opposite direction. So roll the pelvis towards your feet, so the pubic bone goes down towards the floor or towards the seat of the chair, whichever it may be. You get a small arch in the back. Really let your belly come out as you do this. And then slowly begin to alternate. So roll the pelvis once up towards your head, once towards your feet, back and forth. Good. And then leave that alone and rest. Okay, so now bring your attention to your mouth. And just very gently, not like you're about to eat a large sandwich or something like that, but just open the mouth very gently. Just part the lips a little bit, and then close the mouth, and then do that again. Do that a few times, just gently opening and closing the mouth, just to see what that feels like. How easy is it for you to open the mouth? You might put your fingers right in front of your earlobes on each side, or right in front of your ears. Just if you can feel this, where the temporomandibular joint, where the jaw hinges with the skull. And as you open and close the mouth, just notice if there's a little more movement on one side or the other. Maybe you feel that your chin actually moves slightly to one side as you open the mouth. Don't try to correct it, just notice. Okay. Now, leave that alone. And now, take the tip of your tongue and put it on the gap between your two front teeth, the top front teeth on the outside. Just put your tongue there. And now slowly move the tip of your tongue to the right, over to the next gap on the right side of your right front tooth. Then bring it back to the middle, and then rest your tongue on the base of your mouth again. And then put the tip of your tongue in that same place between the two front teeth, and move it over one tooth, and then move it over another tooth. So you've moved it over two teeth, and then bring it back one tooth at a time, back to the starting position between the two front teeth, and then rest your tongue on the base of your mouth again. So we're going to continue like this. I'm going to do the movement slowly and gradually, each time just adding one tooth to take the movement a little further. So put the tip of the tongue between the two front teeth and move over three teeth. And as you go, though, feel the shape of each tooth as you pass the tongue over it. Notice if you're pressing the tongue into the teeth at all, which you don't need to do, but you need to sort of notice that there's a ridge. There's a place where the tongue comes a little forward, and then as you sink between the gaps, see if you can really trace that shape. And when you come back to the middle, then you rest the tongue. And I'll describe this more generally, but you're going to keep going, and you're going to do 4 teeth, and then you're going to rest. When you come back, you're going to do 5. You're going to just build this up little by little. But there's nothing important about the movement itself. It's an opportunity for you to notice if you're involving any other effort. And you can add unnecessary efforts in these movements of the tongue. So really just concentrate on the quality of the movement. Feeling again the shape of each tooth. And very importantly, notice the quality of your breathing as you do this. So as you're sort of brushing your teeth with your tongue like this, are you still breathing evenly? And each time you're taking the tip of the tongue a little further to the right, away from the front teeth, over towards the molars on the right side, still on the front side of the top teeth. Okay, however far you went to the right, doesn't matter, just completely rest now. Tongue is on the bottom of your mouth. If you're sitting in the chair, if you want, you can lean back at this point for a moment. Okay, and then if you are in a chair, come to sit towards the front of the seat again. Feet squarely on the floor. If you're on the floor, you could have the feet standing, you could have the legs long. But now bring the tip of your tongue to the back side of your 2 front teeth on the top, and begin to do the same process of moving just at first 1 tooth to the right, and then back, and then resting the tongue, and then 2 teeth, and so forth. You just continue at your own pace. Can't see you, and usually can't tell where people are at with their tongues when I do this one with people in the same room as me either. I thought of teaching this while I'm driving, because this is one Feldenkrais lesson you can actually do in a car. You can still see where you're going, and it's okay, but I'm often working with my tongue and my teeth as I drive. So you can do this again later if you remember the basic process. And so far it's pretty simple. We started on the front side of the teeth. Now we're on the back side of the top teeth, moving a little further to the right each time, coming back to the middle, and every time you get back to the middle, resting your tongue on the floor of the mouth. And just feel what happens to the other muscles in your face every time you move the tongue to the right like this. Remember to track the quality of your breathing as you go. Okay, and now just rest your tongue again. Just feel the 2 sides of your face now. The right side and the left. Okay, now take the tip of your tongue to the front of your bottom teeth, right in the middle. And it's a methodical thing. You can already guess what's going to happen. You're going to take the tip of your tongue to the right, 1 tooth, and bring it back, and rest, and then 2, and then 3, and so forth. The rests are very important, though. It's not about the movement of the tongue. It's about how the movement of the tongue creates an experience that you can pay attention to. Just realize the AC in this car is probably very close to the speaker on my phone, so just turned it down a little. Hopefully it wasn't too hard to hear. Maybe all you're hearing this whole time is shh. I don't know. Okay, so you're moving the tongue to the right, front side of your lower teeth. Now rest. And now do the same thing along the back side of your lower teeth. Just feel We did the same thing in each of these 4 places, but the tongue has to shape itself differently each time. So see if you can imagine the shape of the tongue. From the tip of the tongue all the way to the back of the tongue at the top of your throat as you do these movements. And the basic formula in any Feldenkrais lesson is that you're doing this simple thing, but you're getting really curious about it, and you're not efforting, you're not pushing, you're not straining, and you're noticing all these myriad details that are there. So this is your opportunity to pay attention to yourself in this way. Okay, rest again. And now, just to see if something's different further than just what's going on in your mouth, again, take your head from side to side, either rolling it on the floor or turning to see over one shoulder and the other in your chair. Just notice if it's easier to one side now. There's a different quality on the side where you're doing the movements of your tongue. Okay, leave that alone. And now, if your eyes are open, just close your eyes for a moment. And now move, so this part you couldn't do in a car. But hopefully you're not in a car, or you can leave this part out if you do it in a car later. Or you could do it with your eyes open. So, well, scratch that. I don't want to start making recommendations about funny eye movements in cars. All right. Move your eyes. The eyes are closed, but it's as if you were looking straight in front of your nose, and then you move your eyes to the right to see the right corner of your right eye. Gently move over to the right with your eyes, and then come back to the middle. Just do that a few times. See how smoothly you can move the eyes. So as if you were tracking something with your eye, and hopefully the eyes don't jump and skip, but if they do, just notice that. Maybe coordinate this with your breathing somehow. Maybe that'll give you more of a smooth quality of moving the eyes. And then you can look a little beyond your eye as if you were looking over to your right temple, or over in the direction of your right ear. Okay, leave that alone for a moment. And now put your tongue again above your front teeth. It doesn't have to be the teeth now. You can just think of the gums above your teeth. And you're going to slowly move your tongue along the gums to the right, but at the same time now you move your eyes to the right. And they move together, and then you go as far as you go comfortably, and then you take the eyes and take the tongue back to the middle of your mouth. And then you look to the right and move the tongue to the right. So you do these things together. Every time you do the movement, feel, does something happen on the right side of your neck? If you want, you can put a hand there to feel the right side of your neck. You move your eyes and you move your tongue to the right side of your mouth. Just notice if something changes the musculature on the right side of your neck when you do that. Okay, and take a rest. And now, move your tongue again from the top of your gums over to the right, but this time slowly move your eyes as if to look to the left. So your tongue goes to the right and your eyes go to the left. And just feel if this changes the quality of the tongue movement. The eyes are now looking away from where you're pointing the tip of your tongue. But then everything comes together back to the middle. Make sure your breath is still easy. take a rest for a moment. And now go back to moving the eyes and the tongue together, everything to the right. Just see if the quality is a little different after taking the eyes a few times in the opposite direction. Okay, and now just rest. Okay, so we've done all these movements of the tongue and a few variations of the eyes, only moving to the right. But come back to your sense of your whole skeleton and how it rests on the surfaces that support it, whether it's the floor or the chair. So I'm not going to be surprised if one side of the mouth or the tongue feels different, but what do you feel on the two sides of the chest? What do you feel the contact of your pelvis on the two sides? Even the feeling of each of your two legs on the floor. Do you notice some differences in places much further away from your tongue and eyes in terms of just the overall quality of one side of your body versus the other? And now let's revisit that movement of the pelvis we did at the beginning. So just gently roll the pelvis a little down towards your feet, a little up towards your head, back and forth. And you're doing this now after doing a process just on one side of the mouth. So if there is a feeling of difference on the two sides, how do you experience that difference now as you do this movement of rolling the pelvis? Does something feel different on one side versus the other as you do the movement? Okay, leave that alone. And now, if you remember, another thing we did at the beginning was just to gently open the mouth. Just open and close the mouth. And feel now, does the mouth open any easier? And also, do you notice a difference in the feeling in the jaw on one side versus the other? So if you do notice differences, if, for example, parts of your body rest more clearly on the floor, what's going on is doing these slow, gentle movements mindfully is giving your nervous system the opportunity to notice details it usually is not aware of. And when the nervous system gets new information, it immediately uses it. Your nervous system is there. It's basically looking out for the best for you. So it tries to find something more comfortable for you, and it takes the information it gets from this process and quite quickly can reorganize the messages it's sending to the musculature. So sometimes part of your body is a little lifted away from the floor. It's as if it's working even though the floor is there offering you to rest. And then after doing some of this work, sometimes the nervous system, you might say, kind of realizes the work is unnecessary and it lets go and you feel another part resting on the floor. Okay, great. So let's begin to explore movements of the tongue to the left. And rather than lead you through the exact same process, I'm just going to talk to you for a bit and ask you to play with it. It was a very methodical thing, right? Front and the back, the top and the bottom, moving little by little further to the side from the middle, taking rests. So I'm going to give you license to just review that on your own, or perhaps to do it in a slightly different way. I'll give you some suggestions maybe. But I'm also just going to offer you some other things to think about. So hopefully you're already exploring movements of the tongue from the middle to the left in these different places. But because you've already done this on the right, you now have this opportunity to clarify some new things, as well as it's not just catching up. So for one thing, really, every time the tongue goes to the left, think about the two sides of the tongue. From the tip of the tongue, down the left edge of the tongue, down the right edge of the tongue. What's the shape of your tongue? as you reach over to the left. Does one side of the tongue lengthen? Does one side of the tongue shorten? Do you feel that certain parts of the tongue lift a little up off the base of the mouth? Of course, the whole tongue is lifted if you're working with the top teeth, but just notice if you can sort of imagine the shape of the whole tongue as you do this. And you move to the side and you come back. You also need to remember that an important part of the process is resting, whether it's between the movements or just after you've explored for a while, to completely rest for maybe at least 15, 20 seconds, maybe more if you wish. Noticing the quality of your breathing as you do the movement. Okay, wherever you're at, just take a rest. Just to make sure that you included that. And just notice if working on the other side, you're beginning to feel some of the sensations that were so different on the right versus the left starting to come into a little more equilibrium. And go ahead and return to your exploration, moving the tongue to the left and back in different ways. Now here's something you could try that we didn't do on the right side. You could do this on the top or the bottom, but you could move over by one tooth from the middle, and then you could switch from the front to the back on that same tooth, and then you could move over, and then you could switch again. So it's like you're drawing a little S between your teeth as you go, as if, or if you think of like a skier slaloming between the moguls, or just some gym class you had, some kind of training thing you do where you go back and forth between the cones. So you can take your tongue to the front and the back as you move to the side and as you return. And just feel again, if you do it that way, what happens to the shape of the tongue. Where do you suddenly notice tensions that you can then let go of if you don't need them? Okay, rest again completely. Doesn't matter if you didn't duplicate the process of the right side. So now just put your tongue on the gums on top and then move the tongue to the left a few times. And then, as we did before, add the eyes. Move the tongue and move the eyes to the left. And then come back. Tongue and the eyes go to the left. The tongue and the eyes come back. And take a rest. And now explore the tongue moving to the left, but the eyes moving to the right. Feel, how does that coordination work on this side? Do a few movements like this with the tongue and the eyes moving opposite, the tongue left, the eyes to the right, and then the tongue and the eyes together to the left again. And then rest. Got off the highway. We'll do this for just a little more because I'm getting pretty close to where I'm driving to. Okay, so now put the tongue on the front of your top teeth or on the gums and just move the tongue all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. Back and forth. Do this slowly. Again, focus on quality, not speed or quantity. It doesn't matter if you don't go all the way to the last teeth, although maybe that's easier now. Just feel how one side of the tongue lengthens as the tongue goes one way, and then the other side as you take the tongue the other way. And notice any differences that might remain on the left or the right. If one side is easier, is there some tension that you're creating on one side but not on the other that you can use this process to identify and then somehow do less work rather than using effort? Equalize the two movements by reducing some effort that you don't need. Okay, take a rest. And now take your tongue and your eyes all the way to the left, and take your tongue and your eyes all the way to the right. Back and forth like that. And take a rest. And now maybe you can guess what's coming. You take the eyes to the left and the tongue to the right, and then take the eyes to the right and the tongue to the left. So back and forth with the tongue and the eyes moving opposite. And just notice, do your eyes and your tongue cross through the middle at the same moment? So see if you can make that happen. So even though they move opposite, these are synchronized movements. In the same way, the tongue begins its movement, the eyes begin their movement at the same moment. And then when you reach all the way to the end of the movement, even though the eyes and the tongue are moving opposite, can you make it so they both come to a stop also at the exact same moment? And what's the quality of your breathing as you do this? Are you tensing somewhere? Maybe in your belly, maybe in your hands, maybe in your eyebrows. Just think how funny you look right now, and maybe that will help you to reduce the seriousness of that might creep in as you concentrate. Good. Take a rest. And then one more time, just take the tongue and the eyes, left and right. And now maybe it's happening for you already a little bit, but now let the head join in the movement so that you turn the head from side to side. And you're moving the tongue and the eyes. And then rest. And now move the eyes and the tongue side to side and move them in the same direction, but turn your head opposite. So as you take the tongue and the eyes to the right, turn your head to the left. As you take your tongue and eyes to the left, turn your head to the right. Go back and forth like this and see again, is there a way that you can have everything lined up when you're in the middle? You could make the movement. So we'll see if this comes through or not. As far as I can tell, no one was here with me, but that's okay. Hopefully you'll see this later. I'm just this funny guy driving down the road, teaching a Feldenkrais lesson to no one. Okay. Roll your pelvis again on the floor. See how that's going. And now, as you roll the pelvis up and roll the pelvis down, or maybe it's towards the front of the chair and towards the back of the chair, as you do one of these movements, open the mouth, and as you do the other movement, close the mouth. And just notice how you decided to coordinate this. Which movement goes with opening, and which movement goes with closing. Do a few movements, and then take a rest. And you just rest briefly, and then you do the movement again, but you switch the coordination. So whenever you were opening the mouth, now you're closing it. Whenever you were closing the mouth, now you were opening it. The pelvis is going towards the feet, towards the head, or towards the front, towards the back of the chair. But now you're doing the other combination of opening and closing the mouth. All right. So I'm pretty much where I'm going now. I think I'm going to stop right there. So it was fun to do this. I hope someone sees it, and if you do, I would really enjoy getting feedback from you, or even if you feel so moved, you could make a little post explaining how it went for you. But people enjoyed the first live I did, and if people enjoy this one too, I might just do this every once in a while. I kind of enjoy it. So again, this is Seth, and DC Feldenkrais on Instagram. You probably know that already if you saw this. And I'm just wanting to share the Feldenkrais method with you, and I've put up a lot of videos, a lot of explanations about it, but doing the thing is the clearest way to understand what it is. So I'm gonna sign off here, but thanks for being with me, and hope to hear from you how it went. Okay, ciao.